I invited my mother over for dinner. I made spaghetti the same way I always do. Ground beef, a traditional spaghetti sauce, but I add a mix of veggies including carrots, peas, green beans, corn, celery, lima beans, and potatoes. All chopped very small and mixed in with the sauce. Regular spaghetti noodles, my children and I, my sisters, etc. Eat this spaghetti and never had a complaint. I started adding the vegetables years ago when I had children as a way to make sure they're healthy and getting their vegetables. My husband made a comment the last time that he wasn't too fond of the lima beans, which I had actually forgotten about. But at the time, I told him it was good for him. To me, there's no real flavor difference, a little texture change, but nothing too noticeable. While cooking dinner, my mom and I were chatting, and then she saw me adding the vegetables and started asking why I would add vegetables. She was shocked. I told her in good humor to let me do what I do, it's good. At this point, my husband chimed in asking if it's spaghetti with the vegetables, and she said yes and laughed. They continued to make fun of me and asking where I saw that. That's not even a TikTok. Nobody does that. I told them multiple times that it's good for you and reassured my mother that if she tries it, she'll see there's no taste difference. She asked why I would bother adding them then, and I reiterated that it is good for you. My mom then Googled recipes and said only vegans add vegetables to their spaghetti and they don't put meat in it. Just kind of kept going. My husband chimed in from the living room playing his game with a really rude tone saying, "I don't even want none." At that point, I said, "You know what? I think you're being really rude to my mom, and if you to my husband want to make your own food, then feel free." I kept cooking, and at this point was trying not to get emotional. I could feel myself starting to cry. I'm also 5 months pregnant, so hormones and emotions are stupid right now. My mom just kept making comments and asking why I would do it, how she's going to tell my sisters how I cook it, etc. I let her know they have actually had my spaghetti, and even they say you don't taste the difference, and spaghetti is one of my sister's all-time favorite meals, so she would definitely let me know anyway. My mother was like, "Oh, I'll try it, and I'm curious to see if this is any good." But then the condescending comments kept coming while she was probably thinking she was making light of it, but I really just found it rude. My husband responded to one of her comments agreeing. I told them both I was overhearing it, again, and screw both of you. At this point, my emotions broke through and I almost started crying, but it was just my voice cracking. I kept cooking and hoped they hadn't noticed. But my mom kept going until I finally asked her to please leave. She tried to apologize, but still held to her opinionated responses about how she just doesn't know why I would do that, and how could I mess up the simplest of dinners. I told her she could go again. My husband said, "I've told you not to make it that way. I don't know why you would," as she was going to the door to leave. I finished making dinner, made the kids and me bowls of spaghetti with our breadsticks, pettily leaving none for my husband, and we said our prayers and ate together. Halfway through eating, my husband asked where the breadsticks were, and I said, "We ate them. You can make yourself something to eat." He asked, "So because I don't want the spaghetti, I don't get any breadsticks?" I answered no, because you wanted to be rude about the food I was making, and sat back encouraging my mom to be rude as well. You can make your own food. He said a few things complaining while walking away from us at the table, and I just am curious if I'm the jerk for asking my mother to leave, and being petty about the breadsticks after being treated what I felt was so poorly while making dinner. I understand that's my mom, but she was a guest in my home and had never even tried it before, deciding it was outrageous. And my husband didn't like the lima beans in it but ate all of it last time. I'm not asking for it to be his favorite, but his tone and the lack of care to how I was being treated made me not want to let him have any of the food I was making for our family. IDK. I know I'm not a perfect human, but am I a jerk? Edit. After many responses, I'd like to say thanks for the feedback. In the end, it truly is not super serious. I won't be adding lima beans to my spaghetti anymore, and looking into whether the other vegetables actually add nutritional value or not, because that shocked me to hear that they potentially are pointless altogether. In the end, hopefully my mom figured out that you should be nice to the pregnant lady trying to feed her family and try something before berating it, and my husband didn't enjoy dinner with the family, nor did he have a delicious breadstick. In a week, this won't matter at all now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. A long time ago, I noticed that my husband was just pushing food around on his plate, and I asked if he liked it. He said it was fine, but not what he felt like eating. So I started asking him what he wanted for dinner before I cooked, but he never had any suggestions. There was still a lot of food pushing, so I asked what was up, and again, it was not what he felt like eating. So I told him he could cook dinner, maybe his subconscious would know what he wanted to eat. I let him cook most dinners for the next year. All this to say, if he had done what your husband did, he would still be cooking his own dinner. Comment 2. Not the idiot. I like my spaghetti with a little more substance as well, and I'm a damn good cook, according to everyone I know. I usually add mushrooms, onions, zucchini, squash, and it really adds a little something to it. I can't stand people who want to criticize someone's cooking without trying it. How do they think they get all of these great new recipes and all of these fusions out there? Now, for the update, thanks for the comments from last time. So, a lot has happened since then. The day after the spaghetti incident, my sister called me out of the blue. She never calls unless it's something serious, so I knew it wasn't just to chat. She told me she had a huge fight with our mom about how she treated me. Turns out my mom had gone to her to gossip about my cooking, but my sister wasn't having any of it. She defended me, saying how hard I worked to keep everyone healthy, and that mom should have been more respectful, especially in my own home. The argument between them got so heated that my sister said she needed a break from mom. She didn't want to see her or talk to her for a while. This was big because they're usually thick as thieves. It left me feeling guilty because it was my cooking that started all this mess. Then things with my husband took a turn. He came home from work the next day with a peace offering, a cookbook. He said it was to help us find new recipes together, ones we both liked. It was a sweet gesture, but it felt like he was still missing the point. It wasn't about the food. It was about the support, or lack thereof. I tried to let it go, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that he was just trying to smooth things over without really understanding why I was upset. We ended up getting into another argument, this time about communication and respect. He said he felt like he couldn't be honest with me about what he liked to eat. I told him it wasn't about the food, but how he handled the situation with my mom. It was a mess, and we both went to bed angry. The next day, I decided to take a bold step. I wanted to clear the air with everyone, so I invited my mom and my sister over for dinner, without telling either of them that the other was coming. I thought if we could all sit down together, we could sort things out. I made a different meal this time, something simple that I knew everyone liked. When they arrived and saw each other, the tension was thick. Dinner was awkward at first, but eventually they started talking. It wasn't the heartfelt reconciliation I was hoping for, but at least they were civil. I felt like I had done something right, bringing my family back together. But here's where I made the wrong choice. I thought I could push it further, get them to really talk it out, so I brought up the spaghetti night, trying to explain how their comments had hurt me. That's when the dam broke. My mom got defensive, my sister got angry, and I just sat there, wishing I could take it all back. The evening ended with my sister storming out and my mom in tears. I had tried to fix things, but I only made them worse. Now, I'm left wondering if they'll ever be able to mend their relationship. And it's all because I couldn't leave well enough alone. As for my husband, he's been quiet since that night. He's been making his own meals, and we've barely spoken. I don't know if he's giving me space or if he's still upset. Either way, it feels like there's a growing distance between us that I don't know how to bridge. So, that's where things stand. A family divided, a marriage strained, and me, right in the middle, wondering how a simple plate of spaghetti could lead to all this. Thanks for reading. My sister forgave her cheating husband, but kept bringing it up at family dinners. So when she found him texting the same coworker, I helped her send the screenshots to his boss and watched as his career crumbled. Okay, so I, a 24-year-old female, was on the phone with my sister, who is 27, and we were talking about our Christmas gathering last year. My sister married her husband, Scott, who is 29, about 5 years ago, and when she introduced him to us, he was very charming and we all liked him. 2 years into the marriage, he cheated on her, and they have 2 kids. She went through his phone and called me, and then my mom crying. Of course, we comforted her and said we would help her if she was ready to divorce. She said yes, and that she'd pack some stuff and come stay at my mom's while she figures everything out. My mom said to let her know when she was ready, and she'd pick her up that day. Mom lives about 40 minutes away, my sister said, okay. Mom picked her up, and she proceeded to cry on the couch for 9 hours. We told her I wasn't there, I was on speakerphone, he was trash, and that he really hurt her. She was ignoring his calls while in my mom's presence, but she answered as soon as she saw a moment because she ended up going back home with him later that day. She texted my mom she was going to talk it out. Long story short, she said she forgave him and they stayed together. Well, ever since that day, every year when we meet up for our annual Christmas Eve dinner and really any close gathering, my sister will casually drop the bomb that he cheated on her. We initially didn't want him to come to any gatherings after that, but she vouched for him. We'll be having a super fun conversation and she'll be like, I can't have any hobbies. Scott might wander into someone else's bed if I don't pay attention. The whole room just gets really quiet, and she plays it off like a joke. She told everyone he cheated already, and she was a huge mess to boot. The first time this happened, we didn't want him there anyway, so we laughed. The next year came around, and she came with him again. I'm thinking that they've made their peace with each other, and it's pointless to still be mean to Scott when she's not. So I ended up casually asking if he canceled his Planet Fitness membership yet, and she cut in to say, Scott only goes out of his way to cheat. He looked embarrassed, but just awkwardly laughed. I showed a less impressed expression and just went away. She does this every year. If we rag on him, she'll defend him, and if we talk to him, she'll bring it up again. I never said anything. I chose to stay out of their relationship. Scott is pretty funny as a person, and before this happened, we loved having him over at the gatherings. Now, to my knowledge, he had 2 one-night stands with a coworker at a job he no longer works at. He's apologized to her and she forgave him for it. Well, we were on the phone and she was mad because my mom asked her not to come for 4th of July if she was bringing him. She was pissed, saying it's her choice to be with him, and if she's okay with him, why does our mom need to ask this? Mom was always fine with it before. I told her it's probably because she keeps telling people he cheated on her. Every time she does this, she ruins the vibe of the function. We all find it increasingly annoying that she brings him and wants us to be mean to him even though she forgave him. If we are nice to Scott, she will bring it up. If we're mean, she'll run to defend him. Last year she did this all night. I told her this. He always just stands there quietly and awkwardly like the rest of us while she laughs the silence away. I asked her what kind of reaction does she want because it seems like she's still mad at him. She doesn't want him to talk to anyone yet. She keeps bringing him. She told me it's her right to say if he cheated on her and our mom is taking his side by asking her to stop. I told her she's being ridiculous and she shouldn't be surprised if she's uninvited if she has to do that every time. She hung up, and it's been 3 days since we spoke. I think I may be the jerk because he did cheat on her and I'm sure there's a lot I don't know. I've been thinking I should try talking to her again because she may feel isolated. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Is Scott's real name Hank Reardon? Because who else has a wife that deliberately stays with him after he cheats on her because it makes her feel superior and she finds comfort in tormenting him? Not the idiot cheating isn't cool, but her response is illogical, petty, and annoying to innocent parties. Comment 2. Not the idiot. She needs to learn to read the room. If she is going to stay, then she decided it was okay. So that is on her. She doesn't get to ruin everyone else's day as some weird penance for him. I hate cheating, but for goodness sake, just leave. Stop being a petty lunatic in public. Now, for the update. Thanks for checking in on the drama that's been unfolding. So, after my sister hung up on me, things went from bad to worse. She didn't just feel isolated, she was fuming. A couple of days later, she called me back, not to apologize or talk it out, but to drop a bomb. She found out Scott had been messaging that same coworker again, the one he had the one-night stands with. She was a mess again, and this time she was serious about leaving him. She packed her bags and the kids and showed up at my mom's place without a warning. Mom was shocked but took them in. She was furious at Scott and said she should have never let him back into our lives. But here's where it gets complicated. My sister didn't just want comfort this time. She wanted revenge. She had taken screenshots of Scott's messages and sent them to his boss. Scott worked at a family-friendly company, and this kind of scandal could cost him his job. She was out for blood. I couldn't believe it. I mean, Scott messed up, sure, but this was their private life spilling into his professional life. It felt like too much. The fallout was immediate. Scott's boss called him in for a meeting, and he was put on leave pending an investigation. My sister was pleased with herself, but the rest of us were worried about how this would affect the kids. They needed their dad to have a job, after all. But then, as if things couldn't get any more tangled, Scott showed up at Mom's place begging for forgiveness. He was crying, saying he'd do anything to fix things. My sister wouldn't even let him in the door. She told him he'd ruin their family and that she was going to make sure he paid for it. The kids were crying, Mom was trying to calm everyone down, and I was just standing there feeling like I was in the middle of a storm. A week went by and the tension was thick. My sister started talking about getting a lawyer and going for full custody. Scott was desperately trying to save his job, and then out of nowhere, my sister's best friend told us that she had seen Scott and that coworker together, looking cozy, just a day before my sister found the messages. It was like a slap in the face, all his apologies, all his tears, and he was still lying to us. That was the last straw for me. I told my sister that she needed to cut him off for good, for her sake and the kids. She agreed, and with a heavy heart, she told Scott it was over, no more chances. She blocked his number, changed the locks, and started working with a lawyer to sort out the divorce and custody. Scott tried to reach out to me, to the family, to anyone who would listen, but we were done. It was clear he wasn't going to change, and my sister needed to move on without him dragging her down. The aftermath was rough. My sister stayed with Mom, trying to rebuild her life. The kids were confused and hurt, but we all did our best to support them. Scott ended up losing his job, and last I heard, he was moving in with that coworker. It was a mess, but at least it was a mess without him. Thanks for sticking with me through this update. My daughter thought bullying was a game until I pulled her out of private school and her mother tried to sue me, but the judge sided with me, and now we're closer than ever. So I took my daughter out of her private school after finding out she and her friends were bullying another student who was not as fortunate. I also took her car away and put a strict curfew of 8:30 on days she works, and 5 on days she does not work. My ex is furious. She feels this is overkill. I have primary custody. Part of me is even thinking of giving the student she and her friends bullied her car, but logistically, that would be harder to navigate. I explained to my daughter that I did not go above and beyond to provide every opportunity for her to succeed in life, to find out she and her friends lorded said opportunities and luxuries over others. She will be going to a year-round school district. Her private school follows the traditional schedule. Her new school will have fewer extracurricular activities. My ex feels it is unfair to her future, but I don't care. She is acting like her mother, where she mistakes another's fortune for her own. She is threatening to take me back to court because she feels this punishment is unfair, and we should not use her education as a form of punishment. I told her to take me to court, but I don't think a court can force me to put my kid in private school. I was speaking with my dad, and he told me I should rethink this. He used to be a teacher, and he told me schools have become far more competitive to get into. The lack of varied extracurricular activities and loss of prestige from her private school could harm her chances at getting into top schools. Since GPA and AP credit are not enough. This got me thinking, but I don't know. I do not think I should allow her to continue on the same path after she mocked another student who had less. My father told me this could form a rift between us being my daughter and me, and I could see that. My daughter said she would rather be with her mom. I have told her many times I am not stopping her from being with her mom. Her mom is what is stopping it. She did not want to have 50-50 custody. I did not want to fight, so I agreed to take primary and cover everything. I left my wife because I did not notice how nasty of a person she was at the core, and my daughter has shown she has the same tendencies. So am I the jerk? Update. Tomorrow, I will sit down and ask why she did what she did, because people are right, I should have noticed. Her friends always seemed nice, never got complaints from any parents in her friends or social groups. Teachers never complained. I bought into my perfect little girl mindset. I will ask her and I will see what is what. That being said, my daughter knows how I feel about this stuff. Her mom and I divorced because her mom did not like how I ran my practice, and felt I was using family funds to cover the treatment costs for those who could not afford it because our insurance system regarding eye health is dumb. She did not like that I chose to work longer hours and more days to cover my costs, while also providing free to no-cost care for those in need, instead of suggesting to hold off treatment if they don't qualify for a loan. I will sleep on it and ask her tomorrow. Thanks for the feedback and advice. I will say this. I refuse to force her to apologize, because it would be worthless. All it will do is foster the mindset that if I apologize when I mess up, everything will work itself out. I will not force her to volunteer or do charity work, because all that will foster is if she does something that appears to show she has changed or has learned something new, all will work out. Charity and volunteer work are not punishments. They should not be used to show people how others live. They should be activities people do because they want to, not because they get rewarded for it or to correct some wrong. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, I see your point, but your father is correct about the competition for good schools. I would suggest you offer your daughter a compromise. She can continue at her private school, but must volunteer at least 40 hours a month at a soup kitchen, homeless shelter, or something of that nature. That way, she is actively participating in the decisions made concerning her future education chances. Higher education facilities love to see applicants that help the community. I would further suggest the same with her car. If she wants her car back, you will return it once she has earned it back by delivering meals to shut-ins, offering rides to the elderly or low-income individuals to appointments. Once again, she will be the one deciding if she wants to earn her lifestyle or just wants to settle for what she gets because she won't put in the effort. So, NTA. However, let your daughter decide if she is willing to earn back what she had before and learn some life lessons, or would she prefer to lose out on future chances? Comment 2. Not the idiot. Paying for her to be in a private school is not a given, and going to a public school won't destroy her life. Better to learn these life lessons early than later in life. In general, though, I'd work on better co-parenting with the ex. Decisions on the best way to handle issues should be made in unison in your daughter's interest, independently of who has primary custody. Now for the update, thanks for sticking around to hear more about what's been going on. So, I had that talk with my daughter. Turns out she felt pressured by her friends to act a certain way. Peer pressure, you know? She admitted she didn't want to, but didn't know how to stop it. I get that, but it doesn't excuse her actions. I told her that, and she understood, or at least she said she did. The next day, my ex served me with court papers. She's really pushing for that private school. I'm not budging, though. I've seen what that environment did to my kid. The court date's set for next month, and I'm gearing up for it. My daughter's been quiet since the talk. She's not happy about the public school, but she's adjusting slowly. Then the past came knocking in a way I didn't expect. The kid who was bullied? His mom reached out to me. She thanked me for what I did, said it meant a lot. But here's the kicker. She asked if my daughter could talk to her son, maybe explain why she did it, help him understand. I was torn. I didn't want to force her, remember? But I also saw it as a chance for real growth. I asked my daughter what she thought, and to my surprise, she agreed. She met with the boy and they talked. I wasn't there, but the boy's mom said it was good for both of them. My daughter came home quieter that day, more thoughtful. I hope it sticks. Work's been crazy too. I've been covering more shifts to pay for the legal fees. It's exhausting, but it's gotta be done. I keep thinking about what my dad said, about the rift between me and my daughter. I see it happening, and it scares me. But I also see her mom's influence waning, and that's something at least. The day before the court hearing, my daughter did something unexpected. She told her mom she didn't want to go back to private school, said she realized it wasn't the place for her. My ex was livid, accused me of brainwashing our kid. But I hadn't said a word. This was all my daughter. In court, it was a mess. My ex was arguing, her lawyer was slick. But when my daughter spoke up, everything changed. She told the judge she learned from her mistakes, that she was sorry for what she did, and that she didn't want to be in a school that made her feel like she had to be someone she's not. The judge listened, and in the end, ruled in my favor. My daughter stays in public school. After the hearing, my ex didn't say much. I think she was shocked. I was too, to be honest. but it felt like a weight had been lifted. My daughter and I walked out of there closer than we've been in a long time. It's not perfect, but it's a start, so that's where we're at. It's been pretty up and down, but I'm hopeful. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.